Welcome to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. I'm your host, Joan Advent, and I am so delighted to be with you today and to welcome my first guest in 2021, Maria Rodriguez. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Joan. So good to be here.
Yes, we have an exciting conversation we're going to get into. So exciting that it brought me out of, we'll say, retirement, for lack of a better word. I was so inspired to have this conversation with Maria that I said, let's do an interview.
Yay.
Yay.
Lucky me.
Yeah. So I'm going to share just a little bit about Maria before we dive in. So Maria is a licensed clinical social worker who started out years ago as a police social worker, and now she's in private practice. But she has gone from clinical social worker to evolutionary revolutionary, which I love. And her own journey of spiritual awakening, I would imagine, is part of what excuse me, prompted that transformation. Maria is also the founder of Corps de Grace, which is meant to bring the heart of grace more fully into the world, primarily through the Sustancia School of Social Change. And what we are here to talk about today is her newly published treatise, From Barriers to Bridges. So welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Joan.
Yes. So the treatise has quite a story. The treatise is quite a potent, I'm going to say, little pill. It is a brief book, but it is a very potent book. And so I would love to just hear you describe a little bit about, actually what's coming through is like your relationship with the treatise.
That's an interesting question. Well, what's coming up for me as I kind of sit with that question is that right before the treatise came through, I had been guided in that spiritually connected way that came from the spiritual awakening that you referred to in 97. I had been living that way, and I had gotten this guidance to begin to write more and to reserve Wednesday mornings for writing. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, I had been receiving all kinds of wisdom for our psychological healing primarily through breaking our toxic shame cycles, and then through our spiritual development, through what I used to call leading a spirit-driven life, and now I call soul speak, claiming your birthright to connect to your soul and follow its guidance. And I started writing a blog called Anamkara. And the morning that the treatise appeared was a morning that I had been writing what I call a mystical, magical story that had happened with some clients and friends. And it was just about this money clip that had been lost and found. It's a very dramatic, kind of bizarre in a way, but amazing story. And it was almost like by writing more, I think that I opened up a wider channel. And the treatise flew in the form that you see it now, except for the opening. The first page came in a little later, but not in a book form, but where I wrote it, I received it that way. And so my relationship with the treatise has been very humble surrendered, open,
Mm.
in awe of how it was structured already. It's a very, kind of unique structure in that it has a quote on the right side of every single page, a different quote that is referred to. And so I remember when I first wrote it up I initially wrote it up in my iPhone, and then I wrote it on a Microsoft Publisher form in color and with the quotes. And when I printed it, I went to my friend's house and we were sitting at her dining room table, and I could barely stand the power that was emanating from the pages of this treatise in its first printed form. And so I had a feeling that something big was supposed to happen with it, but because of my own barriers that I talk about in the book, that the barriers are not only between us and other people, but they're within us, barriers within us. I didn't have it published for 9 years until, and it is part of my relationship is that I follow what the treatise, in a sense, wishes. I know it sounds kind of weird, but but I believe it has. I should probably use this one, without it's a cleaner copy. It has its own will, and I speak a little bit about that in the preface as well.
Yes, that is my sense, that this is not content created or written from your personality, or maybe not even from your own higher self, that it's coming from somewhere higher, greater, that you have said yes to being a partner with or a steward for.
Yes.
You're nodding your head.
Yes, and I did receive the content was most original to me when I received it, and yet the themes were not new to me, or the direction that the treatise is inspiring us, in a sense, even stronger than that, like imploring that we take this direction and rise in this way. That wasn't new to me, but the way that it was expressed was, as you said, didn't come from my thinking.
Yeah. So before we started recording, we were talking about, from my point of view, that really is the process of trusting your sacred feminine flow. It's like trusting and being willing to partner with that which wants to come through from a place of higher wisdom, not just anything that wants to come through. But
yeah, we don't want certain things at all.
Right. We have our yeses and our nos.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So I would love for you to kind of give us the kernel. So the title is From Barriers to Bridges. And can you dive in a little bit more just about that, or how that has shown up for you, or how it shows up for the people that you work with, your clients, or what we see in the world around us, what you feel like this wisdom is calling us to do?
Yes. It's so simple and yet so complex, and it's always a bit of a challenge to put it into words, but I'm going to do it in this intuitive way that we're talking about, to see what wants to come through. There are gaps between us and gaps within us that keep us in a divided state that is not natural or meant to be permanent.
So keep us separated in a way.
Separated within us, and those gaps, which I've not used that word before, are slowly killing us in a sense, or at least they're killing dreams and possibilities, and I
Mm,
believe causing a lot of destruction, unnecessary destruction.
yeah.
It's not the kind of destruction that we need for transformation
Mhm,
purposes, the
mhm,
things that we need to let go of or release. It's unnecessary destruction. And so, for example, the barriers within me that cause me to hesitate being visible in this way, or having higher hopes of, instead of, I was originally planning on just doing a little pamphlet, like printing it, and it really wanted to be published by a publisher, available on Amazon and
mhm,
that kind of thing. Those would have stopped any of this from happening.
mhm,
Any of this wisdom I didn't receive for me, or even for my small, kind of my circle of influence. It is so universally relevant and critical, I believe. So I do, I'm a couples therapist, family therapist, and so, and an individual therapist. And I believe that a lot of the things that we need to heal within and heal our intimate relationships and other relationships are very similar to what we need to heal the social political divide.
mm,
And so the treatise brings the core of what that is on all those levels, personally, relationally, societally, politically, and this core of practical, usable pieces of wisdom, new
mm,
ways of thinking and being and believing, new ways of believe, new things. It's about changing our fundamental core beliefs, the
mm,
paradigms that are so mainstream, that we use to think about ourselves, about each other, about groups of people, about, political issues, anything.
mm. And it's interesting because this, of course, is coming out on election day, where it's not election day today as we're recording it, but it is coming out on election day. So isn't that appropriate? And I'm wondering, like, is this the kind of resource that one could invest in, even just to create conversation in the family, or with those where there might be the barriers?
Oh, absolutely. Um, One of the things that I really talk about is that the treatise wisdom isn't asking us to change what our kind of top values are, what our leanings are. So some of us lean kind of blue to the left, more liberal, and some of us lean to the right, more conservative. And the difference is what I call being blue versus being blue purple, or being red versus being red purple. Blue and red is, the biggest difference is that whatever concerns, the things that we most want to gain and avoid, like, are different. That's why there's so
Mhm,
much struggle, is that
mhm.
the priorities, the things we value, fear the most and desire the most, are different.
Yes.
And so it doesn't take that away. It's asking us to realize that it's only half the picture. It's
Mm,
only part of the story. And
mhm,
these things do matter. They just aren't the only thing that matter.
mm.
In the toxic shame model, I call it I matter and you matter equally, and that's the kind of fundamental things that really begin to heal
Yeah.
relationships, that have been injured, because we can tend to care, what I call you really matter, I don't matter, or I really matter, you don't matter. We can go either way, neither is good. And so the treatise, the difference between somebody who's more blue and someone who's more blue purple, is that the blue purple knows that they only are seeing and understanding half the picture, and they're critical to society because they have to bring to those that are more purple, that hold the whole, that can tolerate the complexities and all the contradictions and, you know, dilemmas of the whole, they bring all of those insights and
Mhm.
those values forward, and the red purple people do the same. And so there is none of that conflict, because it isn't a power struggle over which is right or which is more important. It's that disappears when we rise to what I call the purple way, or the purple movement, the bridge way,
Mhm.
right? So this is like being kind of like you know, being here, but then bringing it to the part that we see and hear,
Yes. So
middle.
the color purple, which is the blending of the red and the blue.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, that's okay. Go
I just was remembering that when things were so inflamed around race relations and the police in particular, that you had some very powerful insights about that and the way that that bridging could be possible. Is there anything you want to say about that? Or
Yes, I like many, because I've heard from many people that no matter which way they lean, find a lot of the media and social media um, very difficult to watch. And I believe that's like contributing to what I call the false divide.
Mhm.
And so I was inspired by all of that, Joan, to write a blog
Mhm.
about, like, there's something really off here. We do not have to choose between supporting the police and supporting that Black Lives Matter, not the movement that may have some shadow elements, but the actual
Mhm.
original purpose of that. Um, we don't have to choose. I myself am married to a retired deputy chief of police, and I have lots of family members, cousins, brother-in-laws that are in law enforcement. I worked in police departments for 15 years, and I know the shadow and the light that exists there, as there's shadow and light to everything. And so the thought that we had to choose, I once drove around the neighborhood, Joan, and I couldn't find one. You know, they were putting signs on the lawn.
Mhm.
I didn't see one lawn, whether it was a business or a personal residence, that had both a support the police sign and a Black Lives Matter sign. That
Ah,
to me is absolutely absurd, to have that choice. And so I was told that I really needed to submit this as a letter to the editor for the Chicago Tribune, which was very foreign. You know, although I've always written and this blog and all of
mhm.
that, I hadn't considered myself like a writer in that way. And so I did, with your help, actually, because of your fabulous Magdalene Rose program that hopefully we'll touch on. And you had helped me bring one of the paragraphs of the original blog article to as the
Mhm.
opening, which
Mhm.
really lent itself better to a condensed version of it. And I was shocked when I wrote about, we do not have to choose between being completely against the abuse of power and racial injustice, and being completely supportive and grateful for what the critical role that police men and women play in our society. We don't have to choose between the two. And so I was very surprised, actually, when they published it, and the response I got from people that were much more pro protesters or much more pro police was that they both felt the same way, that what I wrote
Mm,
resonated with what they were really feeling internally, but there was
yes.
no place to join. They were only given the two options. Who do you support more?
Yes.
What about this third option, which is the bridge, right?
Yes.
Where we support both. And what I wrote later was a blog called The False Divide Unveiled. And it talks about, there are police and protesters that believe in peace and justice, and there are police and protesters that don't. And so the divide is less here
Right.
than here. And again, it's the difference between the blue, purple, red, purple, and the blue or the red sometimes, where they don't care about the other side, you know?
Yes. And as you were speaking, I'm wondering how much is the risk factor of what am I trying to say? It's like the social pressure. And so the risk to stand up and say, whether it's through the political parties or just the groups of people we're most accustomed to relating to, but to stand up and to be a voice for that purple way requires courage. And I so appreciate your matter of factness about, yes, we all have light, we all have truth that we're bringing, and we all have blind spots, we all have shadow. Like that's not the issue, that's not the question. But it does seem like who is willing to just be a voice for whether it's compromise or resolution or reconciliation, or I'm not sure what the right word is, but that how do we find that middle way? Or I know you use the phrase 360-degree perspective.
Yes. And people have gotten attacked. You're right on. There is risk because there's a misunderstanding. There's such fear that if we loosen our grip on that, this 180 degrees of the truth is all that matters, and it's the whole truth, that it's going to not matter enough. And one of the other feedback I got from that letter to the editor was that the person who read it said that they had rarely seen a piece that talked about the whole picture without diluting the truths. A lot of times it's like watered down, like, peace and love and, kind of thing. It's like watered down the real true violations or calls and things like that. And so when you're initially speaking a more purple way, there's often a reaction that you're diluting or minimizing the truth, and it's going to affect. So with the police Black Lives Matters example, that if you point out the real life risk to the police and real life dilemmas that they face, that it's going to somehow minimize getting justice and accountability and prevention of the horrible racial injustice and crime, homicide, that have occurred. And so there's such a misunderstanding because we're so used to thinking of it in black and white terms, that when you begin to speak more purple, it's not it's going to take some strength and clarity and courage, as you said, because there is some risk. But to me, the risk is far greater of remaining silent and staying in this divide where there's only two choices instead of the third choice, which doesn't dilute anything, which also prevents the pendulum swing of going too far this way and then having all these consequences, and then going too far that way and then having all those. So there's a lot more to gain, I believe.
Yes. So you are someone who has said yes to be a way shower. You said, yes, I will risk. I will come out for this alternative. I will be an evolutionary revolutionary. Yeah. And I believe that those who are watching this are cut from the same cloth. They are those who at least have, or not just watching this, but also listening to this, have an openness or a predisposition to the purple way, we'll say. And I think this might be a good time. I know you wanted to share an excerpt. I thought this might be a good time for you to do that reading. And
Sure. Okay. The truth is not a matter of opinion. The truth is not a matter of opinion. The truth is not a matter of opinion. It is what is. It holds everything and everyone at once. It cannot be moved. It can only be discovered. It can only be discovered by those who now hear the call and who now have the courage to do so. For when the truth, the capital T truth, is what we are tapping into, we all tap into the same thing. The same thing. Can you even believe it? Can you dare to believe it? One by one and two by two, 100 by 100, we are hearing that call and stepping into that courage. It may already be you. It may be about to be
you. Can just feel that washing over, just the essence and the energy. So you can, those that are listening or watching, like that is the transmission. And you can feel, I can feel the difference between just our discussing of these ideas and when you give voice to the treatise and what it has wanted to express, what comes through. And I guess there's something about, is there a way for us today to build a bridge to those that are listening or watching this? Like to build the bridge of, because as I said, I do believe that these are people who are a yes to being more open, who are a yes. And sometimes it's a matter of, yes, I want to find the purple way, but I don't know how, or I don't know what to do. Right? I don't know what the first step is, or do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so. It's I think the people that have been responding to my articles and so on, that are having those moments where they're restless or uncomfortable with something isn't quite right. And even when they engage in the old way, in the kind of mainstream way, there's a part of them that isn't fully comfortable, or maybe very uncomfortable. And maybe some of you get avoidant like I do. Like I would avoid the whole thing, like avoid talking about anything that was like that, or even like talking about a divorcing couple, where there's like a tendency to be black and white, like one's to blame or the other, would make me uncomfortable. It's a very similar, like I said, there's a very similar thing. And so what came to me, Joan, as you mentioned that, is that we feed the black and white, the blue and the red, we feed that. Again, because of my, local government experience, I was familiar with unions and management. That's another place where you see a lot of divide. It's very similar, so that you could look around and see all kinds of things, but there's a lot that you can find that feeds that 180-degree perspective, like you were saying, instead of the 360. And so if those of you who are watching have, you may already have resources, which I would love to hear, by the way, that don't do that begin to offer a new perspective, like that letter to the editor, like the treatise, that the resources, and begin to feed that would begin to change, so that the things that you're reading, the things that you're talking about, the people that you're talking about them with. If you're talk, get into these discussions more with the people that are open to the purple, even if they don't, because I find that it doesn't matter whether you know what purple is or whether you are still kind of more in the blue and the red. It's how open you are to a new possibility, a new way of thinking, a broader, let's say that you're really focused here, but you're open to at least knowing that this is the whole truth. Even if you don't understand this and you don't get it, you don't have to even get it. You don't have to even know that. It's just knowing that what I get is only part of the whole truth. That is already the impact is amazing. I see it again personally, with my internal work. I see it with couples and families all the time. And I see it on a social political level. And so if you're ready for that, have more of those talks.
Yes. And I would imagine that it can be easy to kind of get into our silo or our camp of believing like I know the way, or I know what's right, or oh, those other people, whether it's people in our family. And I dare say probably most people that are watching this, listening to this, are on a path of growth or healing or transformation or awakening in some form. And sometimes we can get caught in that as well. Like we're not exempt from that. We're not exempt.
I certainly am not.
No, from thinking, I know better, or, like, oh yes, all those people who are in their judgment, it really is a very humbling, like it's a humbling perspective. And it's in a way, for me, it kind of coincides with the growth journey or the ascension journey. It doesn't end, like we keep having those human parts of us that would want to cling on to the blue or cling on to the red. And the invitation is like, you don't need those life rafts, so to speak, or those, I don't know if life raft is the right metaphor, but like, you don't need to hold so tightly to that. Like there is safety in opening to a deeper truth, or the, capital T truth, as you referred. Yeah.
There's a power phrase that I'm thinking about, actually a couple, I call them little bites, like potent bites of wisdom, which are in the treatise too, but these are additional ones. And one is, it is near impossible to remain apart when we're truly open to the whole truth.
Say that again.
So it's something like this. I hope it's right. It is near impossible to remain apart when we're truly open to the whole truth. It doesn't, again, matter if we know, none of us know the whole truth. It's a whole process of discovery, like the reading that I just did. It's about just being open to the whole truth, and that humility, that knowing that not one human being can possibly know the whole truth. Yeah. And so the other power phrase that came up was hold it, but hold it loosely, which when you said it, you said something like that. And so I have a beautiful ornament here, Tony, that I came across. I'm not going to go, there's all these stories about this, but the piece that I'm really struck with right now as we're talking about this is that, like I said, we may have a kind of like almost like our zone of genius. Like I think that's from the Big Leap book or something. Or like we have a gifted sight to certain parts of truth. Like to me, this represents the whole truth and the 360-degree perspective.
Can you describe what it is for those that can't see it, if they're just listening to it?
Oh, they're just seeing it. It's an ornament. It's a gorgeous ornament that has swirls. It's silver. And then it has six.
Like a sun, kind of like a sun.
Yes, it's called a supernova sun catcher.
Cool.
And it has little spheres of different colors. So there's red, green, yellow, blue, red, teal. And then it has what I call the diamond of truth. It's just like a cut diamond in the center. And so this image is, to me, so powerful. It's so beautiful, I think. But it's about not confusing. Let's say that you have an insight on whatever truths, small t truths, I call them, in the green or the red or the blue, like we were talking politically. And sometimes I talk about it, we need light purple, dark purple. You have a special sense of the light in the world, or a special sense of the dark in the world. All of us are given a different insight into things. That's not the problem. That's needed. That's necessary. It's when we believe that that's the only thing that matters. That's the only thing that exists, even.
Yes.
And so what I talk about is moving to the center of the truth while continuing to have more clarity and insight about whatever truths are more revealed to you, including like the shadow and light piece. So the hold it, but hold it lightly is a sense about that.
Yes.
And let go of any small t truth. That's not what this is about.
Yes, because I guess that is in part my question, or what I would also like to address is, because from my lens, my vantage point, that as people move through an empowerment process, if they have felt disenfranchised or disempowered, that it does seem like there is a phase in the development where they hold very tightly to the red or to the blue or to the whatever the truth is, that they feel like, this is my truth. This is what's right for me. So is there anything you want to name about that?
That's a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up. And it is part of the developmental process. And I thought of a way with a friend of mine that I saw her going through that. And I'll share that with you. But let's say that it's, remember I had referred earlier to the toxic shame model. One of the healing beliefs is I matter and you matter equally. But if we've been living, you really matter, I don't matter, we've been so out of balance that it's natural to go through a phase of I really matter, you don't matter, in order to build that weak muscle. So I've got to build the muscle of I really matter. I'm doing weights for those of you that are pretend weights. So that's okay. That's natural and okay, as long as we don't plant roots there, is how I said it to my friend. Yes. And the other way I said it is, a lot of us start being unto others, like unto how we were raised, or unto the people currently in our life, or unto those in authority, or whatever. And then we go through a phase of being unto self, and just don't plant roots there, because it's just the second phase. There's a third phase, again, which I call being unbound unto spirit. Which is like a whole different way of being and living, and similar to the I matter and you matter equally. So we go from, you really matter, I don't matter, to I really matter, you don't matter. And then we get to, so this phase is natural and necessary for the balancing healing process, but don't plant roots there. That's not the destination, please. Like, that's like what it's really an important, but it's just a stepping stone to the real destination. So thank you for bringing that up. That's such a great point. Does that make sense?
Yes. And that's exactly what I was hoping you could illuminate further for us, because that is a very useful perspective. And to remember, it reminds me of having teenagers, which we both do.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like that developmental phase, and hopefully, yeah, they get more, or we, as we become more empowered or more individuated at times, that we get more graceful in that we don't have to be quite as intense or tenacious as like a 13-year-old might, as opposed to a 16 or 17-year-old
Yes.
who can have a little more grace.
Yes, that's a great.
Yes. So I would love to hear about some of the power phrases. And I know that you've created for people you're doing in-person connection with around the book, these beautiful bookmarks. Can you share some of those and even some of the
Sure.
phrases?
And I wonder if you'd be willing to do a little process that we've been doing
Yes.
using the phrases. So so I pulled 11 of the 13 phrases in the book, and I placed them on the back of a bunch of bookmarks. And we've been doing these in-person launch parties, like a little book tour in the area. And so everybody's been getting one of these. And then I realized, because I run a lot of small groups called circles that I call circles, and we do all kinds of processes, group processes. And there's something about doing things like this in a group. And this is the group right now, you and me and whoever's listening. So you don't need to be all present in person for a circle to exist. So this is our little mini circle. And so these quotes are like portals to our soul, to our higher selves, to spirit, whatever you connect to, or it doesn't matter, it's applicable, universally. And so when I do what's called a round reading in my circles, I ask them not to just take in what they're reading, which is also, I believe you had mentioned when you read it, that this is not just meant to be read, it's meant to be experienced.
Yes.
So it's tied, Joan, to that testimonial that you had given in reading that beautiful one, reading the treatise, that it's not just like we're taking in what we're reading like we're in school and we're going to have a test, for knowledge purposes. We're taking it in as a way to open that channel and then receive more guidance from our soul. And so what I've been doing is what I call a 3-step process in the launch parties, where the people have been given goodie bags with them, but you could pick one, and then you read the quote, and then you allow whatever bubbles up to come forth and be expressed. And it could be a physical sensation, it could be a memory, it could be an image, it could be not only a thought, although most of us are really connected, aware of our thoughts, but not so much the other parts of us. But I encourage you to open up to all of you, to energy sensations, to body, mind, heart, and spirit, your whole being, and begin to receive what comes up around this as this is simply a portal. And then to bring it down to essence, which is like a word or a phrase, a small phrase that is guidance for this season coming up ahead. So I'm wondering if you'd be willing to.
I would. And actually what I'm going to suggest is, as you're taking me through the process, that I will kind of be the stand-in for everyone. So anyone who's watching or listening, whichever quote or wisdom power phrase we work with, like this is your invitation as well to see what that brings up for you.
Yes. And in the parties, in the book launch parties, there have been there's only 11 quotes. So some that have been doubles, and they've gotten a completely different message. It's been fascinating to see that. The other thing that somebody mentioned is that the book can be used like that, where you open up to any random page and most of them will have a quote. So you can do the same thing. All the quotes on the bookmarks are available in the book. They're from the book. So, okay. So whether you're listening, watching, or Joan, let's take a few moments. It always helps to take some breaths and kind of clear your channel, starting from the bottom of your feet and all the way up through the crown of your head, and just clearing anything that's inside of you in this moment. You could bring it all back later, We're not going to lose anything. It's just making some space, creating some space so that we can receive even more of what's ready to be received. So taking some breaths as we pause a minute and just clear our channel so we prepare to receive. And there are no rules here. The things that come up may have nothing seemingly to do with the quote. We want to allow anything and everything that shows up. And so then, Joan, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to just play around with the bookmarks, kind of like an oracle card deck. Some of you that may do those. And just tell me when you want me to stop, and then I'll pull one out for us.
Stop.
So ready?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to ask you to do, both Joan now and you watching or listening, is to repeat this out loud to yourself. There's something about when you speak it out loud that it kind of vibrates, the energy of it vibrates through you. And then take some breaths and some pause so that you can not only speak or share whatever pops up right on the surface, but also take some breaths so that you can pull up, kind of like allow to rise to the surface anything that's held deeper within you. Okay. So the quote, Joan, that you picked is, "I am being shifted and transported."
I am being shifted and transported.
So just breathe that in deeply, allow it to be absorbed within your cells, within your body, your being, body, mind, heart, and spirit. You can repeat it if you need to.
I am being shifted and transported. And
then you share whatever comes up for you: emotions, physical sensations, energy sensations, images, memories, thoughts, ideas.
mm-hmm.
They don't have to be logically connected.
Yeah, so for me, I'm aware of the gift and the truth of those words. Like I'm aware just in my own process, whether it's my own ascension process or transformation process, I can see the ways that I'm actively being shifted. And I love the coupling of the word transported, which somehow feels, I'm doing a gesture with my hand of like, of rising, but there's something like really meaningful. It's, I guess it's that in a way, I feel the support of being transported in a way that just being shifted, I might not feel it. So for me, it really does feel like the presence of grace or divine support through, whether it's my own higher self or through life. I can feel the shifts I'm going through, but if I were just being shifted, for me personally, it might feel like lonely or like it's just me, like it's just me doing the shifting.
Mm-hmm.
But being transported, like that implies not me, not me as in not the small me. I'm being transported like some things transporting me.
Yes.
And that is really powerful for me personally, like the coupling of that. So whether it's the small I in the larger I am presence, or whatever version you want to label it, that's what comes up. So, and I can feel this like blossoming of my heart space, like this plumes plumes of energy coming out.
Yes. Wow, that's beautiful. And those of you that are doing this later, if you come back to the recording and pause and then do it yourself, you can journal what comes up for you if you're not with a partner or a circle, in order to share it in this way. As long as you express it, literally get it out of inside of you out, in order to create again that channel, clear that channel again. That was I remember that as I was listening to your beautiful share. And so now we're going to bring it, kind of go the other way. So as we're expressing, we're going kind of from in out. And now that we've cleared the channel, as we express whatever came up for us, we're going to go from outside in. We're going to receive the essence. Like sometimes I think of it as like a magic funnel or a vortex, and then we capture like the 1, 2, or 3 drops of essence, like a small phrase of like, what's the essence of what is wanting to come through for my healing, my growth, my transformation, ascension, my guidance for this time. And so, and I'll help you with that if you need help, but just kind of trying to bring it to essence now, like all of what you shared. And sometimes it's something that pops up that doesn't even seem connected. There are no rules here. There are no rules.
So really what keeps coming is I am supported. And I have this image that comes to mind of it's like being suspended, but not in a like a stuck frozen way. I'm a scuba diver, and there are times when it's like the buoyancy of the water. You can be deep in the water and be suspended in that water column, but still, be dynamic and fluid. But it's like the opposite of free fall. Like the bottom is not going to drop out. I am supported, which is meaningful for me personally. Like the bottom is not going to drop out, like not ever.
Yeah, Joan, you have like 3 essences in there that are totally different ones.
Okay.
So again, there are no rules. I've never thought of that. Why don't we do as many? There may be because it just,
my channel has lots coming through.
Yes, your channel is mighty wide, and so no surprise that you're getting more than one essence, because I heard, I'll just say kind of what I heard, but you can tweak them later.
Yes.
These are yours, so make them yours. But I heard the bottom will not drop out ever. Like almost like ... ever. Or the bottom will not drop out for me. ... ever. So say one of those out loud and just let's kind of feel into. I encourage those watching, listening to also say your essences out loud. It's like a process to get to essence. Sometimes it's quick, but sometimes it takes a bit.
The bottom is never going to drop out, not ever. The bottom will not drop out ever.
And then try the for me, either one with the for me.
The bottom will never drop out for me. It's interesting. I feel this like in my sternum area, this, and up into my throat, like this something as I say that, like the bottom is never going to drop out for me.
So the for me made it more powerful.
Well, and it's what's activating this like energy column in my It's
Yes.
inside, but like where the sternum and up into my throat
Yes.
chakra.
Yes. And so that's why I encourage you to say them out loud, because
Mm-hmm.
they all have different vibration, different energy, and you'll get to essence. Your body, our
Yes.
body will help us get to essence,
Mm.
because we can feel the essence has a different energy
Yes.
than anything around it, similar to the ornament that I showed. Like
Yes.
the energy around that center diamond is like pulsating, radiant. It has a totally different energy than the energy in any of the, small parts of the truth, like portions of the truth.
Mm.
So, and then I also heard, I am suspended and supported.
Mm.
Or
I am. Yes. Right. There is something about I am suspended, which when I hear the word, it has so many connotations, not all of which are good,
Mhm.
but coupled with my image, coupled with my image, and I don't know if there's a different word, but so the image and the feeling sense of being suspended or being, I think it's as much about support.
Mhm. Yeah, and I just got suspended, surrendered, and supported.
Mm. Suspended, surrendered, and supported. Yes, because it is about that surrender, and it's so like all I can envision is that either being in the water or being in the air, which I don't know how to fly, but it's like having those flying dreams where where you feel at home in that. Yeah, so it feels like that.
Yes. And so you can see how we're playing around. Like I loved, I am supported.
Mm-hmm.
That feels wonderful. That was like the first essence that came through.
Yes.
And then there was something about the bottom is never going to drop off for me.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
there was some energy around suspended, surrendered, and supported.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that's an example. What a wonderful example. You see how you can go different places? So what I do with this is as I'm living my daily regular life, I kind of hold this. And so those of you that are visual, you may want to, have
Mm-hmm.
post-it
Mm-hmm.
notes or, have them in front of you or some artistic expression around these essences. Sometimes I put them in a journal, but in a larger way, or
Mm-hmm.
created some kind of like more colorful version of it. And so then whatever's happening in my life, I'm like, oh wait, what was my essence? Oh wait, the bottom is never going to drop out for me. And that energy is often very different than my voice chatter,
Yeah.
mind chatter energy, or like, wait, suspended, supported, and surrendered and supported. And then I'll use that to kind of allow myself to float back, to support, to surrender, almost like physically. I love that image of you in the water,
Mm.
like of trusting the water
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
support you. And so that I may physically even and emotionally do something to let
Mm-hmm.
go more. And so these are things to use actively in that way.
Yes. So if people were to choose to buy the treatise, which I
Mhm.
highly recommend, and they wanted to do this process, you're saying they don't even need the bookmarks. They could
No.
just do it with the book, that it's the right page of each page as you open has these statements. And so you could just do like the oracle and like open to a page and do this process for yourself time and time and time again.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
It's fun.
It is fun.
just love it because you never know what's going to come up. And you, Joan, can do the same exact phrase
Yes,
a week from now, a month
Right.
from now, months from now, and it'll likely be something totally different.
right, right.
It's kind of like an infinite access to an infinite field, really.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So I am thinking that if anyone does end up watching this, for example, on my social media channels, and you get to Essence or you want to write about your experience, you could always put it in the comments, or you could always, we will include your information with all the details. People could send you an email or reach out to you about what came through for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not very developed yet with social media, but we did create a hashtag Barriers to Bridges Treatise.
Oh, nice.
Just, all together, Barriers to Treatise, just in case that would be a good hashtag to use.
Yes.
Anything that comes up for any of you through the treatise, through these phrases, and there's, much more to it. Some people, there's consider this section where there's more real life examples with clients and family, friends, and things like that some people really resonate with that. And then there's the more poetic, I don't even know what to call, like the reading I did. And so there's a lot of different flavors or tastes in the treatise, and it seems like people resonate with several of those, and so they can all be portals in a way. But these quotes tend to be quicker. They tend to get to it quicker, more potent.
Yes, they are the just potent experiences. I mean, potent like blasts of the truth or energy or whatever.
Yes, wonderful way to describe it. Yes.
Yeah, so we need to begin to bring this to a close, but I did want to talk with you briefly just about your Magdalene Rose, not the full journey, but there's something about the birth of the treatise and you feeling a yes to support and mentorship in that way, which the Magdalene Rose mentorship is my program of supporting those who are stepping into their sacred elder and who are ready to kind of take that next step to whether it's birth, what's been waiting to come through you in a more powerful way, or just, I would say, own that mantle of spiritual wisdom and authority.
Yes. And for me, it's about that trust your sacred feminine flow, that how I got to be in your Magdalene Rose program and how the timing of when you were getting ready to offer it for the first time and the timing of me being ready for it was just perfect and ideal. And I had no intentions of publishing anything when I started. The letter to the editor had happened earlier. And what I'm realizing now, even more so in this moment, is that it hasn't just been about publishing the treatise. It's about becoming the published author that I am, becoming that part of me, becoming the priestess, the high priestess, which is not a title that I still am comfortable with. It's a newer thing. I officiated my niece's wedding, which is the first time I ever officiated. And I'm seeing myself really, like when I read that passage, I feel like I'm a priestess when I read it. So for me, the published author and priestess are really the same, and they're coming to even greater life through the help of your program and the support of what you bring, Joan, to it. So it's been about me becoming my greater identity, which is what I talk about, that, and overcoming the gazillion barriers that have popped up around that. I mean, we are complex creatures and we have a lot of baggage, and you've seen me through the incredible ups and downs of this process, It has brought up wounds, memories that I haven't thought of in years and decades, some of them, of opening myself up to hope and then being disappointed and all kinds of stuff. And it's not an easy process, and we need any extra support, especially kind of the type of expert. I don't like to use that word, but it feels like that's the elder support that you provide with your program. So that it feels like it's like three things: becoming your greater identity, aspects of yourself that have more barriers, often getting the support for overcoming those barriers, and then birthing whatever product, service, offering may be ready to be birthed.
Thank you. And again, I will just share that my aspect of the trusting the sacred feminine flow really was when the Marys, which is Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, came to me and wanted to work with women like you through me in terms of stepping into exceptional forms of leadership and becoming the aspects that we need right now.
Yes, it's so not only for our personal benefit.
Right.
It is very much for our personal benefit and for, our families and our circles of influence, but it really is a global benefit, a humankind benefit. Like we need you. When I was telling Joan before we started the recording that I was thinking about, I have so many spaces in my office here, my studio, that I could have done this call, and I was brought to doing it in front of this lovely poster of the hot air balloons, and it's connected to a deep desire that I had, that I wrote during a meditation about rising and shining in the full glory of my unique play of light and color alongside of others rising and shining in their full glory. And I believe that that is what we need to heal and in some ways save the world. It sounds kind of dramatic, but that we need that and not only is it about living a life that we love to live more, being more fully who we are and being more alive, it's also, I think, critical for our kind of collective well-being. So
absolutely. Thank you. Is there anything else, if you check in with your own inner wisdom or check in with the treatise, so to speak, that wants to be named or expressed?
Yes, immediately what came up is that this is available in Spanish as well.
Yes.
Apuentes. And so it I think is a bridge not only for the English speaking world, but the Spanish speaking world, as I was guided to translate it in Spanish right away, so that both were published at the same time and are available on Amazon. And so that just came in with a how could you forget? Kind of thing. Oh, let me show it. I actually brought it and then I forgot. You see, I had it right here. This is the Spanish version. So I didn't want to look at that. You see, if I get it, trust the sacred feminine flow live in vivo, because I didn't trust, I even had this sitting here and did not look at it once. So thank you for having me check in.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So again, the book is available on Amazon, and I will have your website link in the details. So if people wanted to reach out to you or even perhaps get on your email list, they could do so.
Yes, right on the website. There's a place to
right on the website. If yeah, if they're in the Chicago area, which is where you're based, they certainly might be interested in events you're having there, or who knows what's coming in the future for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this interview on your beautiful podcast and your other social media channels. I so appreciate you. As you know, you've been so integral to this whole process. So
you are so welcome. And it's been a pleasure and a joy both to be in conversation, to receive the gifts of the process you took me through. It's like that's an added benefit, but also to, as I say, I'm a spiritual midwife. It's like to assist in midwifing you and the treatise into a new form. It's like it does not get better. It doesn't get better for me than that. It's like, woo, time to celebrate.
Yes, it's like I call it, it's full of life. There have been tears, there have been laughter, it's like anger, right?
Right, the whole range.
You know, gratitude, humility. It's like all of life, you know.
Oh, beautiful. So I also want to thank you, beautiful listener, watcher, whatever, for being with us today. I would strongly encourage you to get a copy of the treatise. You could buy it, leave it, read it yourself, but leave it for friends and family. It's the kind of thing like, hey, let's have a conversation about this. And want to remind you, as always, to trust what your heart knows.